He built the future before the world was ready for it. And then he watched someone else get rich off his dream. Back in 1992, when the internet still screamed through dial-up tones and videos took hours to download, one man had a vision. He believed that one day, people wouldn't need DVDs, blockbusters, or cable TV. They'd just click and watch. Instantly, his name was Rob Glazer, a former Microsoft executive, sharp, ambitious, and certain that the internet would rewrite entertainment forever. He wasn't just another tech dreamer from the 90s. Glazer had already made his mark inside one of the world's most powerful companies. At Microsoft, he worked directly under Bill Gates, where innovation was practically currency and failure was just another step toward the next billion-dollar idea. But even in that empire, Glazer began to feel something, a pull towards something much bigger than software spreadsheets and operating systems. He saw the internet not as a tool, but as a medium, a stage that could transform how humanity experienced sound, sight, and connection. Most people saw the internet back then as a digital filing cabinet, a place for email or static text. But Glazer saw a world where you could click a button and watch something unfold in real time. He imagined concerts broadcast live online, classrooms without walls, and movies that didn't need reels, discs, or TV networks. It was a radical thought for 1992, the year he left Microsoft. People were still connecting to the web through phone lines, where one image could take minutes to load. Video online? It was fantasy, science fiction. But Glazer didn't see impossibility. He saw inevitability. So, in 1994, he took a leap. He quit his comfortable, high-paying job, cashed in his Microsoft stock, and founded a company called Real Networks. At the time, the internet was still wild and undefined. There was no Google, no YouTube, no broadband. The world hadn't yet learned to watch or listen through screens. But Real Networks wanted to change that, to bring audio and video directly over the web, no waiting, no downloading. It was bold, it was revolutionary, and it was way too early. When Glazer pitched the idea to investors, most of them didn't get it. Some laughed, others dismissed it as too far ahead. After all, the average person was still trying to understand what a website even was. The idea that you could stream a full song or broadcast a live event online sounded like madness. Yet Glazer's conviction didn't waver. He assembled a small team of engineers, dreamers, and programmers who shared his belief that the internet could become a living, breathing network of experience, not just information. They worked out of a modest office, surrounded by bulky computers, slow modems, and the soft static sound of dial-up tones that defined the early web. Their goal? To invent the impossible. By 1995, Real Networks released Real Audio, the first streaming media player. It was a spark of a revolution, an invention that let users listen to live sound online without downloading files. For the first time, the internet could speak. At first, the idea sounded insane. Streaming video on the internet? In 1995, most people couldn't even load a single web page without waiting a full minute. Pictures loaded one line at a time. The phrase buffering became the soundtrack of frustration. The average internet speed was barely enough to send an email, let alone stream video. But Glazer was chasing something bigger than convenience. He was chasing potential. He knew technology always started ugly, black and white televisions, pixelated computers, clunky cell phones. But with time, each will refine into perfection. Real Networks was meant to be the beginning of that evolution for entertainment. So they pushed forward. Glazer's team began experimenting with ways to compress audio and video so that even the slowest internet connections could handle them. They created their own file formats, their own playback tools, their own encoding systems. It was all new, raw, untested, and groundbreaking. In dusty server rooms across the world, Real Networks technology started quietly changing things. CNN began using it for online news updates. Sports broadcasters use it to transmit short clips. Even political campaigns experimented with it. It wasn't pretty. Videos were grainy, choppy, often freezing mid-frame, but it worked. And for a moment, it felt like magic. People were watching things on the internet, something no one thought possible. It was only the beginning, or so Glazer believed. But Glazer saw the future differently. where others saw limits, slow connections, pixelated images, a world not yet ready. He saw an opportunity, a revolution waiting to happen. He believed that if people could one day talk, read, and shop online, then surely they could also watch. And not after a download, not after a wait, but instantly. So he and his team began building something that didn't exist anywhere in the world, a way to make the internet move. After months of relentless coding, testing, and failures that nearly broke their spirits, Glazer unveiled a creation that would change everything: Real Player. It wasn't just another piece of software. It was a window into the future. Real Player was the world's first true streaming software, a tool that could take data, break it into small, invisible fragments, send it across the internet, and reassemble it into motion and sound on your screen. Nope, downloads. No waiting hours for a single clip. Just click and play. For the first time ever, sound and motion lived online, and the world took notice. It started quietly. A few tech enthusiasts, universities, and early adopters began experimenting with it. Then came the headlines. Watched live on the web. Something no one had ever imagined possible outside of television. Soon, Real Player was everywhere. CNN used it to broadcast live events and breaking news. Real-time coverage of history unfolding, available to anyone with a modem. The White House used it to stream press conferences and presidential addresses, opening a digital doorway between government and citizens. Even NASA used it, streaming shuttle launches and space missions to people sitting at home, staring in awe as human innovation reached beyond clouds. To understand how revolutionary this was, you have to remember the world before YouTube, before Netflix, before Twitch. Watching anything online was unheard of. The internet was still text-heavy, static, silent, and still. And yet here was Real Player, turning it into a living, breathing network of moving images. The moment was electric. Tech journalists called it the birth of the online era. Investors poured in. The media couldn't stop talking about it. Real Networks wasn't just another startup. It was a company that made the internet feel alive. In Silicon Valley, people whispered that Rob Glazer had done what even Microsoft and Apple hadn't yet imagined. He'd turned the web into a digital broadcast system. And in homes across America, people clicked play. And for the first time in history, they watched the future load right before their eyes. It wasn't perfect. The videos were tiny, grainy, and often paused mid-frame. But it didn't matter. What mattered was possibility. For the first time, millions of people realized that the internet could do more than send messages. It could show them stories. Real Player had cracked the door open, and the entire world was now peeking through. Real Networks became the darling of the tech world, the shimmering symbol of what the future could look like. Magazines called it the company bringing television to the internet. Glazer was hailed as a visionary, the man who had cracked open a new dimension of human communication. Investors swarmed. Reporters wanted interviews. Conferences wanted him on stage. He was the new prophet of Silicon Valley, the man who turned the web from words into moving pictures. For a brief, dazzling moment, it seemed unstoppable. Real Networks was on every innovation list. The company's logo began to appear beside CNN, the BBC, and Time Warner. Every major broadcaster wanted to experiment with the strange, new streaming future. Tech journalists couldn't stop calling it the beginning of the end for cable television. Glazer himself was beaming with confidence. In one interview, he said, "The internet will become the most powerful broadcast network ever built." He was right, just not in the way he hoped. Because beneath all the buzz, something fragile was breaking. The technology worked. Just barely. Videos would start and then freeze. Audio would cut out mid-sentence. That haunting word, buffering, flashed on screens everywhere, reminding users that the future still came with a long, frustrating wait. People wanted this new world so badly, but the reality was painful. The average internet connection speed was 56 kilobits per second, barely enough to load a picture, let alone stream a full video. Computers weren't fast enough. Modems couldn't keep up. And the more Real Networks tried to make the experience smoother, the more impossible it became. Users were excited at first, but excitement quickly turned to irritation. The idea of streaming was revolutionary, but the experience was agonizing. Still, Glazer refused to give up. He poured money into research, hired top engineers, and released new versions of Real Player almost every few months. Each update promised better speed, fewer glitches, smoother playback, but it was like patching holes in a sinking ship. The truth was simple: the world wasn't ready. Real Networks had invented tomorrow in a world that was still living in yesterday. And while Glazer's team fought to make the technology bearable, something worse, something invisible at first, was creeping in. Competition. Big tech had been watching. In boardrooms across Redmond and Cupertino, executives whispered about Real Networks' sudden rise. They saw a company that had discovered something too powerful to be left alone. The key to the future of media. Soon, new players began to appear. First, Microsoft, the same company Glazer had left, began building its own streaming software, Windows Media Player, which would come pre-installed on every PC in the world. Then Apple with its QuickTime streaming. Then Adobe experimenting with Flash video. Each one had deeper pockets, bigger teams, and faster reach. And slowly, the spotlight that once belonged to Real Networks began to fade. Glazer had started a revolution, but the giants had arrived to take it from him. Microsoft saw what Glazer was doing, and they wanted it. Inside Redmond's vast corporate halls, whispers began spreading. Executives at Microsoft had been quietly observing Real Networks' rise, and they recognized something dangerous. Glazer, their former colleague, had built a door to the future, and he'd done it without them. To Microsoft, streaming wasn't just an experiment. It was a potential empire. So they did what giants always do when they see a threat. They built their own version. It was called Windows Media Player. And unlike Real Player, it didn't have to fight for attention or market share because it came pre-installed on every Windows computer in the world. Overnight, Real Networks went from being a pioneer to a cornered inventor. Microsoft didn't need to out-innovate them. It simply needed to out-muscle them. Glazer cried foul. He accused Microsoft of using its monopoly power to crush competition, and he wasn't entirely wrong. Real Networks sued. The case dragged on for years, but by the time settlements were reached, the damage was done. Real Player, once the star of the web, was being replaced by something everyone already had by default. How do you compete with free? You don't. And just as Real Networks began losing its footing, a new wave of innovators appeared. Companies who had learned from its struggles. Then came Apple. With QuickTime and later iTunes, Apple didn't just stream, it integrated. It tied media to devices, built ecosystems, and turned digital content into a lifestyle. It wasn't just about watching, it was about belonging. Then came YouTube. Two guys in a garage built a platform that took what Real Networks tried to do and made it frictionless. No downloads, no installation. Just click, stream, and share. It wasn't polished, but it worked. Because by 2005, the internet was finally fast enough to handle what Glazer had dreamed of 10 years earlier. And then came Netflix, the company that would take Glazer's core idea, streaming movies and shows online, and build an empire around it. But this time, the technology, the infrastructure, the audience were ready. Netflix didn't have to convince people that streaming was the future. Real Networks had already done that groundwork years earlier when no one believed. Each company that followed perfected what Glazer had imagined, but at the right time. And that's where the heartbreak lies. Because the tragedy of Real Networks isn't one of incompetence or poor vision. It's the tragedy of timing. Rob Glazer's idea wasn't wrong. It was too early. He built the road that others would later race on. Real Networks didn't fail because the idea was bad. It failed because the world wasn't ready to live inside the future he'd already created. And that's what makes this story sting and shine. Because behind every global success story, there's often a forgotten name. Someone who dreamed it first, who proved it could work, and who paid the price for being ahead of their time. Real Networks was that name. The spark that lit the fire and then got buried beneath the blaze it started. Because while Glazer's company slowly faded into the background, his invention quietly transformed the entire digital world. The headlines moved on. The hype disappeared. Real Networks became just another name from the dot-com era, overshadowed by shinier, faster companies. But beneath the surface, the code, the logic, and the ideas that Glazer's team had written were still pulsing to the veins of the internet. Every time a video loaded without downloading, every time music played instantly with a single click, every time a live broadcast streamed across millions of screens, a piece of Real Networks lived inside it. Every YouTube video, every Netflix show, every Spotify song, they all trace back to that original vision, the one Glazer had when everyone else said it was impossible. The compression algorithms, the packet streaming technology, the concept of breaking media into data fragments and sending them in real time. Those weren't born from Silicon Valley giants. They were born from a handful of engineers in Seattle working under Glazer's impossible dream. The irony was poetic. The world had moved on from Real Player, but it was still running on Glazer's dream. He had built the blueprint for the digital era, and while the companies that followed scaled into billions, he remained the ghost architect of the online world we know today. But the story doesn't end in pity. Rob Glazer didn't disappear into bitterness or bankruptcy. He kept creating, kept investing, kept building technology that aligned with his ideals. He walked away not as a billionaire, but as something arguably more rare, a visionary who had proven the world wrong, even if it didn't reward him for it. He became the living reminder that in technology, being first doesn't mean being successful. Being first means carrying the burden of belief when no one else will. It means taking the punches that others learn to dodge. It means blazing a trail through the dark so the next generation can see the path clearly. Glazer took those hits, the skepticism, the lawsuits, the technical failures, and kept going. He showed that innovation isn't about timing the market. It's about defining what the market will one day become. He was the man who built the bridge that everyone else crossed. And though he may not have stood at the finish line with the glory, every success that followed, every stream, every click, every song, carried a piece of his legacy. Because sometimes history doesn't celebrate the pioneer. It celebrates those who arrived after the hard part was done. And Glazer, he was the one who made the hard part possible. And in a quiet, poetic way, Real Networks won something Netflix never will. It didn't win in profits, or in global subscribers, or in cultural dominance. It won in something much harder to measure, proof. It proved that the impossible was, in fact, possible. When Glazer's team first tried to make video travel across the web, even their closest allies doubted them. Engineers said it couldn't be done. The internet simply wasn't designed for that. Data back then moved like molasses. Sending moving pictures over a dial-up line was like trying to pour the ocean through a straw. But they did it anyway. Those pixelated, lagging, often muted videos were miracles in disguise. They were the first whispers of what the web could one day sound and look like. Before Real Networks, the internet was flat, a static world of text and still images. After Real Networks, it began to breathe. When a CNN news clip played on a computer screen for the first time, it didn't matter that it was blurry. It moved. When NASA streamed a shuttle launch, it didn't matter that the frame froze every few seconds. People across the world were watching it together. That moment of connection through motion and sound was what Glazer had dreamed of all along. Real Networks didn't just bring video online. It proved that the internet could carry emotion, that it could transmit not just information, but feeling. For the first time, people could see and hear something unfolding hundreds or thousands of miles away, not after the fact, not through static images, but as it happened. It bridged distance in a way that no email, no chat room, no website ever could. It's easy to underestimate how profound that shift was. Before Real Networks, the digital world was silent, cold, two-dimensional. It was a library, not a theater. But once sound and motion entered the frame, the internet transformed into a living emotional ecosystem. That's what Glazer's invention truly achieved. It wasn't just about streaming. It was about presence. When you watched something online through Real Player in the late 90s, you weren't just consuming data. You were experiencing a moment that felt alive. It wasn't smooth or perfect, but it was real. The flicker, the pauses, even the buffering, they were part of witnessing a miracle in motion. And maybe that's what Netflix can never reclaim. That raw firstness, that imperfect magic of discovery. Netflix refined the dream. it polished it, it made it effortless. But Real Networks created the dream. Glazer's company didn't give the world convenience. It gave it a glimpse of the extraordinary. And in a poetic sense, that's the highest victory an innovator can achieve, to show the world what lies beyond the edge of disbelief. You see, every innovation starts as a failure of timing. It's never that the idea is wrong. It's that the world isn't yet tuned to hear its frequency. The world punishes the pioneers and rewards the settlers. It always has. History repeats that pattern over and over. The Wright brothers built airplanes before air travel was practical. Tesla built electric cars before charging stations existed. Kodak built the first digital camera and buried it out of fear. Real Networks lived that same fate. Being early meant they had to carry every burden first. The technical impossibilities, the skepticism, the infrastructure that didn't yet exist. They had to build a bridge, brick by brick, while standing on it, and it cracked beneath them. But without those cracks, no one else would have known how to cross. The settlers, YouTube, Netflix, Spotify, walked safely over the foundation Real Networks laid. At a time when the internet could finally support the vision, they had faster speeds, better hardware, bigger investors, an audience already educated by Glazer's efforts. And that's why timing, not talent, decides so many outcomes in innovation. Real Networks was punished for being too early. Netflix was rewarded for arriving right on time. But in the long arc of technological history, both matter, because pioneers define possibility and settlers define scale. Real Networks may not have survived the race, but it started it. And here's the reflection, the quiet truth that Glazer's journey leaves behind. If you're building something too early, too strange, too different, you might not be wrong. You might just be first. That's the irony of invention. The people who see the future most clearly are often the ones the world mistakes for dreamers or fools. They are laughed at, overlooked, sometimes erased, until one day, their ideas resurface, reborn in the hands of others. Being first is a lonely, unforgiving place. It means explaining your vision to people who can't yet imagine it. It means hearing no when you know it should be not yet. Rob Glazer lived in that in-between. He stood on the edge of what technology could become and dared to push it forward, long before the internet was ready to follow. So when people stream movies now, binge entire shows, or listen to live podcasts across continents, they're not just witnessing modern convenience. They're experiencing fulfillment of a dream born decades ago, inside Real Networks' dimly lit office, where engineers once struggled to make a single video frame move. Every seamless Netflix show, every smooth YouTube stream, every uninterrupted Spotify playlist. They're all echoes of the moment Glazer proved that the internet could do more than connect. It could feel, it could make you laugh, cry, wonder, all through invisible signals traveling at the speed of light. And maybe that's a quiet victory no one can take from Real Networks. That first spark of emotion traveling through code, defying limits, whispering to the future. This is possible. Because sometimes being too early is just another form of greatness waiting to be recognized. The world often forgets that innovation isn't always rewarded with fame or fortune. Sometimes it's rewarded with oblivion, at least for a while. But that doesn't make it any less extraordinary. Real Networks was never meant to dominate forever. It was meant to ignite, to prove that the web could evolve beyond still pages and static words. It was the match that sparked a billion screens. Netflix didn't emerge out of thin air. YouTube didn't invent streaming from scratch. Spotify didn't magically find a way to play music across the world. They all stood on the shoulders of an idea that was once dismissed as impossible. The idea Rob Glazer dared to chase when no one else did. So no, Real Networks didn't lose to Netflix. It taught Netflix what was possible. It showed the world the shape of the future, even if it wasn't the one cashing the checks when the world finally caught up. And that is the irony of innovation. The pioneers rarely win the race they start, but they define the track. They take the arrows, make the mistakes, and lay the groundwork so the next generation can sprint without stumbling. They make the impossible look obvious, only after they fail trying to prove it. And in that failure lies something deeper than success, legacy. Rob Glazer may never have reached the billion-dollar valuations of those who followed him, but his fingerprints are all over our digital lives. Every stream, every click, every movie night, every song that starts in an instant. It's all a silent echo of his original dream, because greatness doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it wears the scars of being first. So now I'll turn it over to you. What do you think? Was Real Networks a failure, or a visionary that history forgot to reward? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I genuinely want to hear what side you're on. If you found this story fascinating, hit that like button. It helps more people discover stories like this one. And if you want more real-life tech stories that dig deep into the untold side of innovation, share this video with someone who loves history, business, or technology. Oh, and before you go, a quick reminder. Most of you watching right now aren't subscribed. So if you've made it this far, you clearly love stories that make you think. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the next story might just change the way you see the tech world forever. This is not just history. It's the anatomy of innovation and the story of how being too early sometimes means you were simply ahead of everyone else.